The rain had not stopped for days. The city streets were soaked, reflections of flickering streetlights trembling in the puddles as if even light itself had grown weary of shining. Beneath one such broken light, a man sat hunched against a cold brick wall, his arms wrapped tightly around his knees, his head bowed low. His clothes were torn, his shoes barely clinging together, and his face streaked with dirt and rain. But none of that compared to the heaviness in his eyes swollen and red, burning from tears that would not stop. He was not drunk, not violent, not dangerous, just a man swallowed by despair. In that moment, it looked as though the world had completely forgotten him. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of one small act of humanity to change a life, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to I Am Kindness Corner, and share this story with someone who might need to be reminded of hope. And don't forget to comment below with your thoughts. It helps us spread more stories of compassion to the world. His name was Daniel. Once upon a time, he had a life that seemed ordinary but secure. He had worked in a small furniture workshop, hands steady and skilled at carving beauty from rough wood. He had a small apartment, modest meals, and dreams that didn't stretch too far but were enough to keep him going. But life has a cruel way of unraveling, thread by thread, until the cloth that once felt warm and safe turns into nothing more than scraps. It began with the factory shutting down. Machines silenced. Workers let go. He had thought he would find another job quickly, but weeks turned into months. His savings thinned. Bills piled high. The landlord grew impatient. He sold whatever he could, holding on to only a few belongings that reminded him of who he once was. But eventually, even those slipped away. Now he sat in the rain, alone, clutching nothing but the weight of his sorrow. People walked by, businessmen in hurried suits, students under umbrellas, mothers tugging their children along quickly to avoid eye contact. To them, Daniel was invisible, part of the background noise of poverty the city had grown too used to ignoring. He could not even lift his voice to beg anymore, shame had silenced him long ago. All he had were tears, silent, endless tears that blurred the world into a smear of gray. That night, he thought about giving up. Truly giving up. Not just on finding work, not just on finding a home, but on life itself. He had reached the edge, and the darkness whispered seductively that no one would notice if he slipped away. He leaned his head back against the wall, rain dripping from his hair into his eyes, and he whispered a question to no one in particular: why am I still here? And then, through the haze of rain and misery, it happened. A shadow approached, not hurried, not avoiding him like the others. A woman, carrying a small paper bag of groceries, slowed her steps when she saw him. She did not flinch or pretend to look the other way. She stopped. She looked at him, not past him, not through him, but at him. Her eyes, warm and steady, met his. He felt a strange jolt, as if someone had touched the part of him he thought had died long ago. She crouched slightly, careful not to startle him, and then she did something Daniel would never forget. She smiled. Not a forced smile, not one of pity, but a smile that carried light, a smile that said, I see you. You are still human. You matter. Daniel could not speak. His lips trembled, his chest heaved, and tears rushed down harder, because that one simple smile cracked open the wall of despair he had built around himself. The woman gently placed the paper bag beside him. Inside was bread, a small bottle of water, and an apple. Nothing extravagant, but in that moment, it felt like treasure. She whispered softly, please, take care of yourself, and then, without waiting for thanks, she stood and continued walking, vanishing into the mist of rain. The food sustained him for the night, but the smile, oh, the smile, sustained him far longer. It replayed in his mind like a song, each note reminding him that he had been seen. That he was not entirely forgotten. That maybe, just maybe, he still had a reason to hold on. The next morning, Daniel rose from the pavement with a little more strength than usual. He wandered the city, searching for scraps of work. Hours passed, rejection after rejection piling onto his weary shoulders. But every time he felt like collapsing, he remembered her smile. He remembered how it made him feel less like a ghost and more like a man again. That small flicker of dignity gave him courage to try again, and again. Days turned into weeks. Daniel began collecting bottles and cans to earn a few coins. He cleaned himself as best as he could in public restrooms. He patched his shoes with tape he found discarded on the street. Slowly, he clawed his way up from the bottom, not yet anywhere near the life he had before, but at least moving, at least breathing with purpose. And in every step, he carried the image of that woman. He never even knew her name, but he knew her kindness had rewoven the thread of his life. Months later, fortune shifted slightly. Daniel found part-time work sweeping floors at a local diner. The pay was meager, but the owner was kind enough to give him meals in exchange for extra hours. With that, Daniel began saving again, coin by coin. He never wasted a single bite, never squandered a single cent. Each day he worked, he whispered a silent prayer of gratitude for the nameless woman who had sparked this journey back to life. And then one evening, as he was wiping tables near closing time, a familiar voice spoke softly behind him. "You look different now." Daniel froze, his heart pounding, and when he turned, there she was. The same woman, the same eyes, the same smile that had saved him months before. She looked surprised to see him, but also deeply relieved. Daniel could barely form words. His throat tightened, his vision blurred again, but this time not from despair, from overwhelming gratitude. He wanted to tell her everything, how her smile had pulled him from the edge, how her small act of kindness had grown into the very reason he had survived. But she already seemed to understand. She reached out, squeezed his hand, and simply said, "I'm glad you're still here." That night, after she left, Daniel wept again, but these were not the same tears as before. These were tears of healing, of release, of hope. He realized something powerful, that sometimes it does not take grand gestures or mountains of wealth to save someone. Sometimes, it only takes a smile, a moment of humanity, a reminder that we are not invisible. Daniel's story did not become one of sudden riches or fairy tale miracles. Life remained hard, work remained tiring, but he was alive, and he was no longer empty inside. He carried himself differently, with his head higher, because he knew that kindness had touched him and made him whole again. And he promised himself that someday, somehow, he would pass it forward. He would be the smile for someone else lost in the dark. Viewers, if this story has touched your heart, I ask you from the bottom of mine, please like, comment, and share this video so more people can see the incredible power of kindness. Subscribe to I Am Kindness Corner to keep these stories alive, because the world needs reminders that compassion can change lives. And here is a special request. Before you leave, write in the comments one small act of kindness you have given or received that changed your day. Your words might inspire someone else who desperately needs it. Daniel had once thought he had nothing but tears. But a woman's smile gave him hope. And sometimes, hope is all it takes to keep a soul alive.